going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and this is going to be my review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Directed by James Gunn again. You have a lot of returning characters. Chris Pratt comes back as Peter Quill, Star-Lord. Zoe Saldana reprises the role as Gamora. Bradley Cooper voices Rocket Raccoon again. Vin Diesel, he voices Baby Groot. I don't know how that worked out. Dave Bautista returns as Drax the Destroyer. Karen Gillan returns as Nebula. Michael Rooker returns as Yondu Andantu. And you have Sean Gunn come back as Kraglin on set Rocket. And Sean Gunn didn't have much in the first role. This movie, he has quite a bit more. So I thought that was pretty cool. So at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, you find out that Star-Lord is only half human. He doesn't know what the other half is. In this movie, we find out, and that is a lot of this movie. There's a lot of concentration on Peter Quill and his relationship with his father that he meets, Ego, the living planet. So we actually get Ego, the living planet, in a movie. I thought that was cool. You start out the movie, the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're on a mission to destroy this beast. They go in, they take care of business, they go in front of these gold people. There's an entire civilization of people that are gold. And the trade-off is they do a mission and they get in return Nebula. So they bring Nebula out, they hand her off to Gamora. We're off to the races. But then during an airstrike, because Rocket Raccoon stole some batteries from these gold people, Ego had to come and help them out. So Ego help save the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he reveals that he is actually Peter Quill's father. And so there's a lot of questions that Peter Quill has, and you get a lot of cool backstory about what happened between Ego, Meredith Quill, who is played by Laura Haddock, which was a pretty small role there. But you see the bonding relationship growing between Peter and his father, so that was cool. Other than that, to be very honest, there were some characters that were just kind of left out because there was so much concentration on Peter Quill and Ego. And one of the characters that was really left out, as far as like character building or anything, was Drax the Destroyer. He was there mainly for a lot of comedy. He had a lot of good one-liners in there, and it was funny. But that was really it. There was no depth to Drax in this. Another character that you kind of get some character building on is Rocket. You kind of start to establish why he's doing all this stupid stuff that he's doing. Why is he always trying to prove himself? Why is he stealing batteries from this gold race and starting like a fight between the Guardians and the gold people? And so you do start to get some of that later on in the movie. What you also get, though, is that Ego hired Yondu to steal Peter Quill and hand him over to Ego. You find out that Ego is gone all throughout the galaxy, procreating with all these different species, trying to get one that can harness the power that Ego has, and of course Peter Quill can. And so the idea, you find out, is that Ego is going to basically take over the entire universe. Like everything in the universe is going to be Ego. In order to do that, he needs another Celestial, though, that being Peter Quill. So there was a big, long exposition where Ego's talking about that, and he's saying what he's going to do, and he's talking about, loving Peter Quill's mother, and Peter Quill's like, why did you leave her? And he's like, I felt bad, I had to put that tumor in her brain. And then Peter Quill is like, what? Really pissed off all of a sudden, just starts shooting the hell out of Ego, just blowing him up with his guns. And so there's the, official bad guy for the movie. And it was the Guardians taking on Ego. It's literally a planet. And they did some really creative things with it. But one of the problems I had with it was, you kept having the gold people keep popping up in this movie just randomly, like every so often, and it took the rhythm of the movie away. Like it was a bit disjointed. And So I didn't really understand that until like the mid-credit scene, and unfortunately, you could have had the beginning scene and then just went straight to the mid-credit scene without having these guys interrupting the story every so often, because it did make it feel disjointed. Another problem that I had with it was a couple of characters, like I said, just fell to the wayside. You get introduced to Mantis, played by Palm Clementieff. I thought it was a very cute role, but there wasn't much for substance there. You just find out that she's there to help Ego, and that's it. She kind of bonds with Drax, and they're a comedy bit, essentially. There was kind of a cool building for Nebula and Gamora. Nebula incredibly pissed off at Gamora, and you kind of start getting the backstory of why. They used to have competitions all the time. Gamora would always win, and every time Gamora won, Thanos, their father, would take a piece away from Nebula, like an actual piece of her body, and replace it with a machine part. And so he was, pretty ruthless when it came to that. And so Nebula initially comes after Gamora. She gets free, and then she comes after Gamora. They have a fight, and there's an argument where she's like, you always wanted to be the best, I just wanted a sister. And it kind of starts to build that storyline where it's Gamora and Nebula dealing with growing up with Thanos and being in survival mode all the time, and now building a sisterhood between the two of them. So I did like that. The other really cool thing they did with this was Yondu, man. Michael Rooker was great as Yondu. I actually love Michael Rooker as an actor. And with this, you kind of get this hard-ass upbringing, this faux father figure for Peter Quill. And it really does become like, Ego's your father, but I was your daddy kind of scenario. And they kind of say that, not exactly verbatim, in the movie. And I thought that was very, very cool. And so at the end of the day, they have to fight off Ego. They, of course, wind up killing him by blowing up the center core of the planet, which is his brain. And then Yondu actually sacrifices himself to save Peter Quill. And of course, there's that emotional scene where they're raising up into space and Yondu's slowly dying and Peter Quill's watching him. And it was at that point that you realize how much that those two meant to each other. Even though it was kind of a twisted relationship, it was still one that supported each other. And so that was really cool. I really liked that. There were a couple other things in here that, I don't know, man. You had this guy called Taserface. He was played by Chris Sullivan. And Taserface is a Ravager working under Yondu. And he decides to throw a mutiny, throws Rocket Raccoon and Yondu in a jail cell. And then Sean Gunn, playing Kraglin, was kind of originally part of the mutiny. And then wound up helping Yondu escape. And there was a big jailbreak scene where Yondu gets a new fin for his head, the red thing, the red stripe. And he just kills all the Ravagers. And it was a really cool scene, looked really good. But, again, a little bit clunky. It really was. There were just things that felt like they were thrown in here just to be thrown in. Everything looked very good. The special effects, Marvel's always got top-notch special effects. And that's no different here. My big issues were some of the writing and some of the plot. The storyline, like I said, it didn't flow very well. Definitely not as good as the first one, but not a bad movie. I still enjoyed myself. I laughed quite a bit. I did love the action to it. And I did love the character building for Yondu, for Star-Lord. Ego was kind of your generic villain, as usual. And honestly, that's where Marvel has struggled way more than DC. DC has struggled in virtually every other area, but at least they have very compelling villains. They have villains that make you take notice. You have Loki for Marvel, and you have Thanos, and that's almost the sum of it. I loved what they did with Helmet, Zemo, but they do struggle with their villains, for sure. So overall, This movie as a whole, I would give a 7.5 out of 10. It was still thoroughly enjoyable, but not as good as some of the movies that they've made. So let's talk about credit scenes real quick. You get 5 credit scenes. One right at the beginning. Star-Lord gives Kraglin, played by Sean Gunn, Yondu's arrow after he died. And so Kraglin's practicing with the arrow and accidentally stabs Drax and then runs off. Second end credit scene or mid credit scene, the Ravagers unite. You've got Sylvester Stallone there. Sylvester Stallone played Stakara Gord, and then you have Ving Rhames as Charlie 27, and you had a few other of the Ravagers group, and they're all brought back together by Yondu's death. Third mid-credit scene was the Gold People. The leader of these Gold People decided to create a new version of their race. And she's like, he will be more powerful, more beautiful. And she says, I think I will call him Adam, which is Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock, super powerful character in the Guardians universe and the whole Marvel universe, to be very honest. Adam Warlock's a big name. So I can't wait for that if that's what's coming in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That'll be good. Mid-credit scene 4, you have Star-Lord. Groot is now a teenager. He's grown up quite a bit. And you see him arguing with Star-Lord, telling him to clean up his room and get off the video game. It was pretty funny. And then at the end, you see Stan Lee being left by the Celestials. And he's talking about he's got so many more stories to tell. That was cute. So, that's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. 7.5 out of 10. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz. Kaged Nation, out.